so we're back with another My Hero Academia episode, and I actually got around to watching it on time this week, not like last week where I watched it like a couple of days later because I didn't even realize that the season had already started. But now we're with the second episode of the season, and what do you really expect to happen afterwards? We're continuing off of where we started from the first episode, where the first episode was just a super solid first episode of the season. This one basically just continues even more so after that, with where we were left off in the last episode, where Mirko is going after Garaki, I think that's what his name was. I actually don't fucking remember for some reason. She's going after him though, because I guess she's just this bunny girl who has the powers of a rabbit, and she's super buff, and so she's really fast. So she goes ahead of everyone else. She goes after him, because Twice had used this quirk to create a clone. They had to make sure that he's the real one. He definitely is, though. But basically what just ends up happening with Mirko in the episode, which is like mainly the focus of most of the episode, besides like a couple of scenes elsewhere. Mirko is having to deal with the high ends, as Garaki ended up calling them in the episode, which is basically just... think of like the Nomu that we first saw in the first season, but like even better, because they have other really powerful quirks, but then they also have sentience and personalities that reflect their personalities for when they were alive. Because Garaki ends up explaining in the episode that Nomus are just corpses that are genetically modified with a whole bunch of quirks that All For One has given Garaki in order to be able to give the Nomus. Obviously, without All For One, he can't do that nearly as easily, so it's expanding more on how they've been going about this operation for months and months at a time. This technically could have happened much sooner, maybe like around the time when All Might was still the #1 hero, but because All For One ended up getting captured, they had to take their time and create more and more Nomus in the background as things were proceeding ahead in other areas. So pretty much for like the past like couple of seasons, when Midoriya and the gang were doing other things, Shigaraki and this doctor guy, Garaki, were creating these Nomus. They've been preparing this for a very long time. But the high ends that Mirko is currently fighting, they're still developing, they're still changing, and they're still getting accustomed to their powers, it seems. But they're still pretty damn powerful because they're able to overpower her, and they mess up one of her arms. She's like super bloodied up and everything, but she's still going. Mirko was actually really cool in this episode, and you know, obviously this is a character that I don't really know too much about, other than the fans seem to really like her, and now the fans are just getting more of her, and she gets to be badass. So, you know, for what it's worth, Mirko is pretty badass, and I understand why people do like her. We cut to a couple of scenes where it's Endeavor and Aizawa like fighting other like low-ranking Nomus whilst they're trying to evacuate the hospital, and I thought there was a cute little scene where Endeavor like notices Aizawa's really powerful quirk, and he's like, "Oh, well, it's not too late to become my sidekick," and then Aizawa's like, no, I gotta take care of my students," and I thought that was funny. Speaking of his students, we see a very brief scene with Midoriya, Uraraka, Bakugo, Todoroki, and Ida evacuating the city, which, honestly, if it means that they have to evacuate the city of civilians to be able to handle this in the most delicate situation, I don't know, it kind of seems like that some crazy shit's gonna happen, and I kind of hope that it does, right? Like, obviously they have to protect the people, but I kind of want some crazy stuff to happen that warrants them having to do this, because it's like, if it doesn't, then why even have them out there in the city just evacuating all these people for no reason? I don't know. I know it's just a safety precaution, but I don't know, I just want something else to also happen to matter. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to explain, but another really cool moment happens later on in the episode where we show up back with the heroes that are posted up outside of the villa, so Edshot's team. And we have this really cool moment with Kaminari where, obviously he's kind of freaking out because he's on the front lines instead of like with his other classmates and other friends. So he kind of has to he's in a position where he's actually super important, and he has to, you know, be a hero, right? But he doesn't really do that. He's actually very timid, very anxious, I guess. And in this moment, this part of the episode, he's actually super anxious because he's having to go against all these villains in this villa, and there's like so many of them, and yada yada. And the heroes are trying to, like, you know, boost him up and back him up and everything. They're trying to tell him, like, it was actually Midnight who says this. Well, instead of thinking of just like someone somewhere to protect, why don't you just think of someone really important? And I really like this moment where it's like, instead of just thinking about all of his classmates, he thinks about one specifically, and it was Jiro. And I really like that, because the relationship between those two has always been really interesting and really fun, and I like those two together. So the fact that she's the first person he thinks of, I really enjoyed that. And then we have this really cool action shot moment where he's like in the center, like as like a conductor for electricity, with his finger pointed up towards the air. And the first attack from the villains is this guy with his taser, and he does like this wide, like, range, like, attack move with like electricity from the taser. And Kaminari just stands there in the middle, conducting all of the electricity towards him, and he's absorbing it. It was a really cool action shot. So Kaminari actually got to be really cool in this episode, and I really enjoyed that. There's not really much else to say, you know. Like, a lot of these episodes are going to be like solely focused on a lot of action. There's going to be a lot of action going on, and it all looks really cool. You know, like, that's the main thing. It all looks really cool, but there are also really cool small character moments that happen within those action scenes. And I think if you can do that wisely, it ends up being really cool. It ends up being really enjoyable. It ends up being really entertaining. In the previews, we see that Hawks is going after Twice, because, yeah, we already knew that Hawks was basically just a guy undercover giving the heroes information that they need in order to be able to take down the Paranormal Liberation Front. And we see a couple of other things that I don't really remember what exactly happens, but that was like the main thing. And that's, like, I think the main reason why they have the team split up like the way that they do, because they need like a wide range of people to be able to take down Twice. Because Twice, as I explained in the last episode, is like the most threatening person there, besides like Shigaraki and Dabi and a couple other people, because Twice just can create multiple versions of himself and other people. So that's really terrifying. So they have to get rid of him really quickly, and the best way to do it is by, I guess, having all these people to have like wide-ranging attack moves, like Midnight and Cementos and stuff. So it makes sense. You know, it makes sense that they would have like Endeavor be put at the hospital, because in like a one-on-one situation, Endeavor would be like a much better opponent for the Nomus, which, you know, I understand that. I think, you know, there's a strategy there that I wasn't really paying attention before in the first episode, and I'm noticing that now, and I like that they really thought it out. I like how the author for this really thought it out and trying to make sense of why characters are in the positions that they are. But that's pretty much it. I don't really have much else to say. There were a lot of really cool character moments that ended up happening in junction with all the action scenes, and the action scenes were really cool within themselves to begin with. I really enjoyed it. You know, there's going to be more of this, obviously, and there's going to be a lot more to enjoy. It's going to be kind of hard for me to really talk about it, because, you know, unless something like super story heavy happens, then it's going to basically just be like me saying like, oh, this action shot was cool, but then this action shot was even cooler. I'll figure it out. I'll do something about it. I'll see what I can try to figure out. Anyways, that's pretty much it. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like. If you want to see more, be sure to subscribe. Tomorrow is the Boruto episode, and then the day after that, I think, is actually the first episode of the 1,000-Year Blood War for Bleach. So I'm actually pretty excited to start watching that. So, yeah. Anyways, leave a like, subscribe if you want more. I'll see you guys next one. I'm out.